My journey began on the unforgiving streets of the south side of Chicago. My name is Marcus Mitchell, but most people know me as Speedy. My nickname was a testament to my quick wits and sharp intellect of the street game. Growing up, I was driven to escape the struggles of my neighborhood, propelled by my talents in economics and finance. My determination to escape the clutches of poverty was fueled by a promise I had made to my mother. A promise that one day I would rise above our circumstances and carve out a better life. My mom, a beacon of strength and love in a challenging world, had worked tirelessly to provide for our family. She had poured her heart and soul into a humble home, a place where I grew up, surrounded by dreams of a brighter future. I managed to secure a scholarship at the prestigious Westbridge University, an opportunity that promised a brighter future. This is where my path intersected with Emily Davis, a compassionate and intelligent student with dreams of making a difference in the world. We met during a challenging economics class, and a spark of friendship ignited between us. Emily comes from a family of healthcare professionals, witnessing firsthand the impact of poverty and injustice on people's health. She carried a deep desire to bring about societal change, a desire fueled by her family's legacy. Despite the obstacles she faced, her determination to make a difference was unwavering. However, fate had its own plans for me. The scholarship that was the gateway to my academic success suddenly crumbled, leaving me stranded and desperate for funds to continue my education. Reluctantly, I reached out to my old connect from my past life as a dealer to seek financial relief. My old connect introduced me to a new designer drug, a far cry from the good old natural trees I used to deal. I remember the call to my mother, promising her that I would still make her proud, that I would buy her home and provide a life far removed from the struggles we had faced. That promise had driven me to make a fateful decision, to deal the designer drug. Against my principles, I agreed to distribute this new drug, hoping it would keep my dreams of a better life alive. Little did I know, this decision would plunge the campus into a horrifying nightmare. The semester had just kicked off, and the weight of academic responsibilities hadn't yet fully settled upon us. Emily and I, having met in an economics class, were fast becoming friends, sharing not only the trials of college life, but also our dreams of making a difference in the world. It was during one of our many late-night study sessions that we caught wind of an upcoming party, a campus event of grand proportions. The library, a sanctuary of textbooks and deadlines, buzzed with whispers of this party. Rumor had it that it was the kind of event where memories were made, where the tapestry of college experiences was woven. Tempted by the prospect of a good time and the chance to break free from the academic routine, we exchanged excited glances and made a pact to attend the gathering. Eager to embrace the social side of university life and meet new people beyond the lecture halls, we found ourselves drawn to the allure of the party. It seemed like the perfect occasion to let loose, unwind, and an even better opportunity to offload some of this new product. However, neither of us could have foreseen that this decision would soon plunge us into a nightmarish maelstrom, where survival would become our paramount goal. In the heart of the uproarious party, a young student took one of the new designer pills he scored off me, oblivious to the creeping dread that awaited. Within moments, an unsettling transformation began to unfold. His jovial demeanor twisted into a grimace of agony as his eyes turned a hollow, vacant black. Uncontrolled tremors racked his body, and a cold sweat drenched his skin. He clutched his head, tormented by an unseen force. His once human instincts faded, giving way to a primal, predatory hunger. A cacophony of horrified gasps and screams erupted as the reality of the situation dawned on the partygoers. The cursed confection had unleashed a nightmarish fate upon them. The new designer drug proved to be a malevolent creation. Students who consumed it fell severely ill, their health rapidly deteriorating, and they transformed into mindless, violent creatures. Chaos erupted across the campus, spreading fear and terror. In the midst of this chaos, I found myself at the epicenter of the madness. At a party where the outbreak originated, the atmosphere shifted from jubilant to terrifying. Emily was by my side, having approached me a few weeks before, initiating our friendship, unaware of the horrors that would soon unfold. And to further complicate things, a detective from Chicago, Alan Harris, arrived on campus. He was an old-school hard-knocks narcotics detective from Chicago in the Bridgeport area. You know the type of cop that will do anything and stop at nothing to close his cases. He had been investigating me and my old crew, attempting to build a RICO case against us for the past 3 years. As fate would have it, our paths crossed amidst the outbreak. He was caught off guard, unaware of the horrors that was about to be unleashed. Desperate to escape the pandemonium, me and Emily were forced to climb onto the rooftop, where I stumbled upon Detective Alan Harris, who was on a stakeout. He was unaware of the outbreak that had begun within the party below. On the rooftop, where Detective Alan Harris was staking out and setting up surveillance, we faced a moment of peril. The infected closed in on him, and Detective Harris was dangerously close to falling off the rooftop. Instinctively, I saved him, pulling him to safety just in time, preventing a tragic end. Our escape was fraught with danger, close calls, and sacrifices. In one such instance, we were trapped in a library surrounded by the infected. We fought using anything we could find as makeshift weapons. Working together, we managed to hold them off and escape to a more secure location. As we gathered our thoughts and tried to plan our next move, we realized that we were trapped in a room, the walls echoing with the moans of the infected outside. Panic began to set in, and for the first time, fear gripped us tightly. The reality of our predicament hit us. It was a race against time to find a way out. In that confined space, my mind raced, grappling with the harsh reality of the outbreak. I glanced at Emily, her face reflecting a mix of terror and determination. Thoughts of survival and the grim fate that awaited us battled for dominance in our minds. We knew we had to find a way out, but the odds seemed insurmountable. Amidst the turmoil, a sense of realization dawned upon me. I had noticed an unspoken familiarity between Emily and Detective Harris, a shared glance, a certain understanding that hadn't escaped my attention. It was as if pieces of a puzzle were falling into place, revealing a startling truth. The weight of this revelation bore heavily on my conscience. "Emily," I began, my voice a mixture of concern and disbelief. "Is it true? Are you working with Detective Harris?" Emily's eyes flickered with a tumultuous blend of emotions, hesitation, guilt, and a silent plea for understanding. She nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Marcus. I had no choice." Detective Harris interjected, his voice somber but resolute. "Marcus, Emily's involvement was coerced. I used her brother's involvement in a car theft ring as leverage to gain her assistance in this case." The weight of the truth settled upon us like a heavy fog. Emily's face displayed the torment of her situation, caught between loyalty to her family and her feelings for me. I tried to grasp the reality of it all, the complexity of the circumstances that had entangled us in this web of betrayal and obligation. I looked at Emily, my heart aching for her. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, struggling to maintain my composure. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she replied, "I wanted to, Marcus, but I was scared of losing you, of losing everything." Detective Harris stepped in, his voice gentle but firm. "We're running out of time. Our focus should be on getting out of here alive, and I need both you to be focused right now. We'll deal with the rest later." I knew the detective was right. Despite the emotional whirlwind, we needed to prioritize the task at hand. Our lives depended on it. We pushed our personal turmoil aside, a knot of tension and determination settling in the room. In that moment, we were united by a common purpose, even if our emotions were in disarray. With a deep breath and a shared understanding, we set aside our grievances and embarked on a mission that held the key to salvation. The intricate dance of relationships, trust, and betrayal would have to wait. There was a disaster to mitigate and a future to salvage. In that confined space, my mind raced, grappling with the harsh reality of the outbreak. I glanced at Emily and the detective, their faces reflecting a mix of terror and determination. Thoughts of survival and the grim fate that awaited us battled for dominance in our minds. We knew we had to find a way out, but the odds seemed insurmountable. Just when it felt like the walls were closing in and the infected outside were about to breach our haven, an eerie stillness enveloped the air. The pounding on the door ceased abruptly, the groans and growls fading into an unsettling silence. Confusion mixed with relief washed over us as we exchanged bewildered glances. We tentatively approached the door, cautious but hopeful that perhaps help had arrived or the chaos had subsided. As we opened the door, what we witnessed was beyond comprehension. The infected had stopped their advance, frozen in their tracks. It was as if time had paused, and we stood in the eye of the storm. Soon the reality dawned upon us. The effects of the designer drug were temporary, wearing off after about 10 hours. The infected were reverting to their normal state, their frenzied and grotesque forms transforming back into the familiar faces of our peers. It was a surreal sight, a stark reminder that the horrors we had witnessed were not a permanent reality. Relief flooded through us, but so did the weight of what we had just survived. Emily, the detective, and I exchanged a look, understanding that our ordeal was not over, merely paused. The respite was short-lived, and decisions loomed ahead. We knew we needed to make the most of this opportunity, to escape the clutches of the cursed confection, and to ensure that the nightmare wouldn't resurface when the effects wore off completely. The clock was ticking, and time was of the essence. In the eerie calm that followed the chaos, as the infected reverted to their original selves, I felt the weight of my guilt crushing down on me. I knew I had to come clean about my involvement in this horrifying ordeal. I took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words to confess to Emily and Detective Harris. "Emily, Detective," I began, my voice fraught with remorse. "I need to tell you something." I took a moment, trying to steady my nerves, knowing that honesty was the only path forward. I was the reason this outbreak started. Their faces twisted in a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Emily's eyes widened, and the detective's brow furrowed in a blend of surprise and anger. I continued, recounting the desperate situation that had led me to make a terrible decision, to distribute the cursed designer drug as a means to secure funds for my education when my scholarship fell through. As I spoke, guilt tightened its grip on my conscience, and the weight of my actions bore down on me. I watched Emily's shocked expression turn into one of hurt and betrayal, and the detective's stern features conveyed his disappointment and frustration. The reality of the situation was now laid bare, and the room felt heavy with the burden of my confession. I braced myself for their reactions, knowing that my revelation had shattered the trust they had placed in me. But I was also prepared to face the consequences of my actions. In that vulnerable moment, I understood that to move forward, we needed to confront the truth, no matter how grim or painful. The road to redemption would be long and arduous, but I was committed to making amends and finding a way to undo the damage I had caused. Emily and Detective Harris exchanged a glance, their expressions still a mix of disappointment and understanding. I could see the struggle in their eyes, to forgive, to move past this betrayal. But at that moment, our shared ordeal had woven a bond of sorts, a bond that held the promise of redemption, provided we faced the aftermath of this dark night together. Detective Harris, ever the voice of reason, broke the heavy silence that hung in the room. "There's no time for self-pity or anger," he declared, his tone firm and resolute. "What's done is done, and we need to focus on stopping this before it spreads any further." His words snapped us back to the urgency of the situation. Emily nodded in agreement, her features a mix of determination and hurt. I took a breath, acknowledging the gravity of the task ahead. I knew that actions would speak louder than any words of remorse. "We need to find the remaining drugs and destroy them," the detective continued, laying out the plan. "And we need to do it fast. Who knows how many more lives are at stake if this contamination spreads beyond the campus." With a renewed sense of purpose, we quickly strategized, formulating a plan to track down the distributor and locate the remaining drugs. It was a race against time, a race to contain the horror we had inadvertently unleashed. The detective took charge, his experience and knowledge guiding us as we divided tasks and set out on our mission. Despite the weight of my guilt, I knew I had to prove my commitment to making things right. I agreed to join the detective in the search for the distributor, determined to put an end to this nightmare and ensure that no more lives were ruined. As we ventured out into the chaotic aftermath of the party, the city illuminated by the approaching dawn. The reality of what we faced became starkly clear. The infected were returning to their normal selves, but the fear and trauma would linger long after. Our battle had only just begun, and we had to stand strong against the darkness, united by the chance to rectify the terrible mistake that had set this calamity in motion. In the aftermath, I reflected on the consequences of my actions and vowed never to sell drugs again. Detective Harris faced a moral dilemma. Should he uphold the law and arrest me or acknowledge the unexpected bond we had formed during the night's trials? Emily, torn between loyalty to her family and her love for me, had to confront the depths of her emotions and the betrayal she felt. Our lives had been forever changed, and the true test of character had just begun. We stood at the crossroads of fate, uncertain of what lay ahead. Emily, Detective Harris, and I faced an uncertain future, grappling with the choices that would define our paths forever. The cursed confection had left scars, both visible and invisible. Yet, as the sun rose and a new day began, we found a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Whether we could rebuild our lives, repair the damage, and find redemption remained to be seen. The challenges we faced were far from over, and the answers would only reveal themselves with time.